final days of the 100-Year War, everything came crumbling down for Phoenix King Ozai and his daughter, who was left in charge of the homeland. Azula was defeated by Katara and Ozai was taken down by the Avatar. But what happened to Azula after the war and her greatest defeat? Well, hit that subscribe button and let's break down the full story. So the story begins in the aftermath of the huge conflict that took place at Yu Dao. This conflict began after Zuko and Aang agreed to return the Fire Nation colonies on Earth Kingdom land back to the Earth King, but what they didn't realize was that these colonies had been there for so long that Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation families began to mix. This meant that some Earthbenders were now citizens of the Fire Nation and obviously didn't want to give up their homes in the colonies. Families who were both Earth and Fire Nation were being torn apart, and Zuko and Aang couldn't decide on who the colonies really should belong to at this point. The conflict escalated so quickly that Fire Lord Zuko and Earth King Kuei both sent their armies into the colony of Yu Dao to claim the area, and it almost spiraled into a second 100-year war. Luckily for everyone involved, Avatar Aang intervened and proposed a new plan which would separate Yu Dao from the Four Nations into something different. Now, if you've watched The Legend of Korra, you'll probably see where this dispute ends up going, but before that is resolved, Azula comes into the picture. Zuko, as the new Fire Lord, is feeling so distraught and torn up by this whole colony situation that he turns to someone he never thought he would. He brings Azula to the royal palace. Here we find out that Azula has actually been put into a mental hospital in the Fire Nation by Zuko and is confined to a straitjacket and a wheelchair. The events of Sozin's Comet sent her so insane and crazy that Zuko had no other choice but to lock her up. Azula keeps seeing visions of her mother telling Azula that she loves her. The young princess is so deluded that she believes everyone involved in her downfall, from Katara to Zuko to even Mai and Ty Lee, were being controlled by her mother in order to take her down. Zuko then asks Azula to speak to Ozai, hoping to get information out of him about what happened to their mother. On their way there, Azula has more crazy visions of her mother, seeing her in the mirror next to her, but she's happy to help Zuko out because she has the exact same question. What happened to Ursa? As part of Zuko's orders, Azula then visits Ozai in his cell to try to coax the true fate of their mother out of him. During this visit, Zuko considered her so dangerous that she had to be watched by Suki, the Kyoshi warriors, and even her former best friend, Ty Lee. Now, strangely, Azula just sat there in the wheelchair. Not her or Ozai dared to exchange a single word with each other, almost as if they both knew and understood that Zuko was too weak to rule the Fire Nation. In order to get the conversation flowing, Zuko and Suki brought in some tea, an old trick from Iroh, but Azula went ballistic. She completely lost it, using her mouth to rip the tray from Zuko's hands and knock the young Fire Lord over. This sent a vengeful smile over Ozai's face, confirming his suspicion that Zuko was weak, and that Azula was still as ruthless as ever. Azula was furious, asking Zuko how she was supposed to drink tea when he kept her in a straitjacket for all of these years. At this point, the rest of the Kyoshi warriors rushed into the room to protect Zuko, and Ty Lee finally comes face to face with her old friend. As soon as their eyes meet, she chi-blocks her to the ground. This sends Azula into another insane rant as she maniacally screams, "Tell me how she got to you and Mai," implying that her mother was controlling them. Obviously, this is her going absolutely bananas, but Ty Lee has no idea and says she's not making sense. Azula even says to Ty Lee, "How'd she make you lose fear of me?" At this point, Azula asks Zuko to let her speak in private with the fallen Fire Lord, and he agrees, pulling all of the Kyoshi warriors out of the room. He doesn't believe leaving them alone will be a bad idea, since one is chi-blocked and the other is perma-blocked from Aang. Once outside, Ty Lee sheds a tear and says, "She's wrong, you know. I never lost my fear of her." Kind of heartbreaking, honestly. Now, during Azula's private conversation with Ozai, the fallen Fire Lord says that he once kept a secret chamber below the royal palace. In that chamber was a collection of letters from her mother which he never let see the light of day. Right after this, the Kyoshi warriors and Zuko escort Azula away from the prison in her bindings, but Zuko wants to speak alone with his sister. The other two aren't comfortable with this, and Ty Lee even warns him that the chi block will soon wear off, but this is something that Zuko must do. Brother to sister. The Fire Lord then asks Azula what she talked about with Ozai. This does not end well though, because Azula manages to break free from her restraints and blasts Zuko with a ferocious bolt of lightning. She is on her way to that secret dark chamber that Ozai just told her about. Eventually, however, Zuko reaches the chamber and Azula tells her that she has read the letters and believes that they hold the key to finding Ursa. Filled with joy, Zuko then moves towards Azula to look at them, but out of nowhere the evil princess burns the letters in a blaze of blue fire. Now, what Zuko doesn't know is that she saved exactly one letter, the most important letter which will play into the story later on. Zuko is furious and shocked at this, demanding to know how she could do such a thing. Azula responds, "Why don't you ask her that?" Again, referencing her missing mother. After this, Zuko joins Team Avatar on the search for his mother, and he reluctantly forces the group to take Azula with them, with no restraints. They obviously think this is the worst idea he's ever had, but Iroh convinces them that Zuko needs this to find inner peace. Not to mention, Zuko made a deal with Azula that she would only help if she came unbound. Now, as we know, what Azula failed to say was that she didn't actually burn all of the letters. The one she didn't burn shockingly said that Zuko wasn't the son of Fire Lord Ozai, but of Ursa's first love, Ikem. This is obviously very important because if that is true, that would remove Zuko's birthright to the throne. Now, as Team Avatar are flying on Appa with Azula, she falls into one of her insane fits and demands to know which one of them she got to first. Once again talking about her mother. Obviously, the group have no clue what she's on about, but then things get even more crazy. Azula dives off of Appa out of nowhere so that she could use the information she found about Ursa for herself. Aang actually does manage to catch her, but she crazily burns his glider, taunting him by saying, "Nice glider, Avatar. Is it fireproof?" Aang is furious because the glider was a gift, but this allows Azula to escape. On her run away from the others, she again sees a vision of her mother Ursa, who tells her that she is only hurting herself. At this point, Azula lashes out with fury because her mother tells her that she's confused. All she wants is her mother's love, which is an exact parallel to Zuko wanting his father's love. At this point, she can't handle the vision of her mother and she strikes the water with lightning, claiming her mother has turned her own mind against her. Right as she does this, Zuko finds her and is confused, asking, "Who are you talking to?" Obviously, no one is there, but Azula gets worked up into a frenzy saying that she doesn't need her brother anymore. At this point, Katara arrives on the scene and encases Azula in a block of ice. Right after this, however, a huge spirit wolf attacks Team Avatar and they have trouble stopping it. Things get so dire that Sokka and Katara are literally on the verge of death, unable to breathe, so Zuko has no choice but to free Azula to save them. Using her ferocious firebending ability, Azula tames the spirit creature for good and frees Sokka and Katara. Later that night, she goes to sleep, away from the rest of course, and is immediately thrown into an insane nightmare of her mother, where Ursa confronts Azula about her life. She tells Azula that all of her life she has used fear and intimidation to shield herself from her true insecurities. Before this happened though, Zuko stole that single letter from his mother that Azula didn't burn and was horrified when he read it. His heart sunk and his stomach dropped as he realized that he was not the son of Ozai. He showed Aang the letter, which shocked and deeply worried him. After Azula is woken up and finds out that the letter is missing, she immediately flies off the rails and demands that Zuko give it back. She also begins rambling about her mother having told Zuko to steal it, but obviously he has no idea what Azula is talking about. The two get into a massive fight, burning the entire landscape around them, but they do eventually stop and agree to work together once again. After all, the only thing that matters is finding out what really happened to their mother. After this, Aang has to clean up all of the burn damage caused by Azula, and Sokka even says, "Nature really hates you." Right after this, Zuko has a flashback to when he was younger and Azula was criticizing her firebending teacher for being too weak. Zuko stood up and defended the master, but Ozai completely lost it. He said that he was afraid that Zuko wasn't even a bender when he was born and was ready to cast him off because of the embarrassment that would be caused by a crown prince having a non-bending son. Ozai then says the line, "Azula never needed that kind of luck. She was born lucky. You were lucky to be born," which was of course referenced in the TV show. After this, the group travelled to a nearby play called Love Amongst Dragons, which helped the two make amends after their earlier fight. They gushed over their childhood and rekindled old memories of when they were kids at Ember Island. Pretty nice to see. Even though Azula is absolutely crazy, it's nice to see them getting along. Either way, after the play finished, the director of the play named Norin invited them to his home for tea. There they met his wife named Noriko and began asking questions about Ursa, who was actually a former actor in their group. Noriko and Norin begin telling the story about Ursa, but claim that nobody knows what happened to her after she was taken into the royal capital many years ago. Zuko and Azula play with the couple's daughter named Kiyi, and Aang and Zuko ask about Ikem, Zuko's apparent real father. According to the couple, both of them may have been lost in the dark place known as the Forgetful Valley. Team Avatar eventually arrive at the Forgetful Valley and come across a strange brother and sister pair of waterbenders. Now, the reason these two are here is because many years ago the brother used to steal things from very powerful members of their tribe. One day, however, his luck ran out and he returned home with his face horribly disfigured, leaving him unbearable to even look at. The sister tried her hardest to learn healing to help the brother's face, but nothing could be done. She eventually discovered that an extremely powerful spirit known as the Mother of Faces had the power to grant people new faces, so she dragged her brother out to the valley to wait for the spirit to be gracious enough to give him a new face. Azula believes that her mother placed the two there in order to repair her own relationship with Zuko, so as you expect, she lashed out and tried to kill them. The others promptly tried to stop the insane princess, but as the fight raged on, the ancient Mother of Faces finally appeared after all of these years, offering to grant the brother and sister one wish. The two planned to use it to grant the brother his face back, restoring his life back to normal. Now horribly, Azula does something probably more disgraceful than she's ever done and runs up to the Mother of Faces and steals the spirit's wish before the brother can use it to fix her face. Absolutely horrible from Azula. Azula uses her stolen wish to ask the spirit where her mother is, and the spirit grants her wish. It tells Azula that Ursa is actually the woman disguised as Noriko from the family that they just met. Ursa chose to take a new face from the Mother of Faces. As part of this bargain though, she opted to allow the Mother of Faces to wipe all memories of her old life with Ozai, including of her children. Right after this, Zuko returns to the couple's house and notices that they are happy living together, without Ursa knowing the truth about her past. Because of this, he decides not to tell them the truth, but Norin knows what is about to happen and allows Zuko to reveal the truth. Norin is the man once known as Ikem, and Noriko is Ursa, Zuko's true mother. Zuko also reveals to Ikem that he may be his true son, but Ikem denies this in shock because the two have never done it, and I'll let you fill in the dots on what that means. Before they can continue the conversation though, Azula bursts through the roof with a bolt of lightning and attempts to kill Ursa. Azula backs Ursa up to the wall and is moments away from killing her, and despite Ursa not remembering anything of her past, she apologizes to Azula for clearly not loving her enough in that forgotten life. This leads to another intense duel with Zuko, and she eventually fires a bolt of lightning at him, but he cleanly redirects it using his uncle's technique. At this point, Zuko scolds Azula because their relationship has been horribly messed up since they were little, but Azula can't handle this truth and rushes out of the building. As she rushes off, Zuko and Ursa chase her and he tells her that they will always be brother and sister. But at this point, Azula doesn't want to hear it and rushes off into the Forgetful Valley. Zuko and Team Avatar search the area for weeks, but Azula is never found. Zuko knows at this point that she doesn't want to be found. If you want to find out what happened to Zuko's mother next, hit that subscribe button as I'll cover that very shortly, but this video is about Azula. From this moment onwards, Azula spent a long time in exile, unseen by anyone. During that time though, she realized that her true destiny was not to be the Fire Lord or to put Ozai back on the throne, but instead to mold Zuko in her image. She wanted to turn Zuko into the ruthless Fire Lord that Ozai always wanted. After realizing this true destiny, all of the voices and hallucinations stopped for good. Azula was now cured and back to her full power. Following all of this, Azula returned to the mental asylum she used to be in and broke out a group of girls from there to help her in her new quest. She soon remembered the old Fire Nation myth of the Kimura Kage, who would take children in their sleep. She soon found out that these myths were actually ancient spirits who did steal children, so she and her asylum mates dressed up as these spirits and went to the house of Mei's father, Ukano. Ukano was the leader of an underground group known as the New Ozai Society, who wanted to reinstall Ozai back to the throne. Using the Kimura Kage costumes, Azula and her group haunted Ukano in the night and told him to overthrow Zuko immediately. Obviously he failed, and eventually Azula revealed her true identity. This terrified Ukano even more since she was the one who took away his governorship of Omashu. Azula then did something even darker. She transitioned the Kimura Kage group to their original purpose. She started kidnapping kids using smoke, shadows and secret exits to make it look like they were real spirits, vanishing into the night. One night however, Azula chose the wrong target. She kidnapped her own half-sister Kiyu from Ursa and Ikem, leading Zuko to chase after her and corner her with fire. This forced Azula to use her lightning, giving away her true identity to Zuko. After this, Azula ordered Ukano to stage a riot in the Fire Nation. Things got out of hand very quickly, so in response, Zuko fired a very well-respected police officer and put a curfew on the surrounding area. This made him look like the cruel leader his father was, exactly as Azula had hoped. After this, Ukano begged Azula to release all of the kids, including his own son, and Azula was just about to do this, but simply refused to unlock the door. After this, Zuko, Mei and Team Avatar found the location where Azula was keeping the kids, and the brother and sister went wild. They soon battled as ferociously as they did during Sozin's Comet years ago. Eventually, Azula gains the advantage and gets on top of Zuko with her blue fire blade, but surprisingly, she lets him live and tells her about her new destiny. She tells Zuko that he had become ruthless in these past few weeks, but Zuko denies this. Regardless, Azula vanished into the smoke and left him with one final quote: "Accept it, it's who you are." And she has never been seen since. We also have no hint about her fate in The Legend of Korra, so we'll just have to wait and see what happened next. Thanks so much for watching guys, really hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one.